Okay, thanks everybody for joining us tonight for this edition of Not the Museum Thursday night. I'm very excited to bring you tonight's webinar with two museum professionals that I respect and love for what they do in their community. There are also two institutions that I've had the privilege to work at in the past and have personal connections to their sites and collections. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that the Niagara region of Ontario is located on the traditional shared territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Chinatun peoples. The Chinatun people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. Hi, my name is Bernat. I'm the Culture and Museums Manager for the City of Niagara Falls, and I'm happy to bring you tonight's program of Not at the Museum Thursday night, our programming that we've been putting together because unfortunately we haven't been able to sort of have people into our premises over the last couple of months, as all of you know. So about the night and why I thought it might be interesting. Really what I wanted to do when we're looking at our Thursday nights, I wanted to talk to some of the other museums, like I said, ones that I've worked at before and have a bit of interest with, and have worked a lot with these people that we brought on, to have a casual chat about what museums do, how we've shifted, how we've adapted, and what these institutions have been doing, so maybe to let you know about what's new and happening, and what the future might also hold for us, and sort of how does this sort of change in what we're looking at and what we're doing, what is going to last, what isn't going to last, you know, what works now but might not in the future, and you know, we've all been trying and struggling with new things, and some things are working and some things aren't. So we're going to talk about that. What I'm going to say as well is bear with me. I'll do my best to do quick checks, moderate this discussion, and also do the technical aspects. And I hope it all goes well. This is the first time that I've sort of run everything from the front and also do the interviews at the back end as well. So hopefully it all goes well. If you do have questions for us, we're happy to take your questions and pass them on, and either Sarah, Catherine, or myself can answer them. There is, if you're joining us on Zoom, there's a Q&A feature. And if you shoot in some questions there along the way, I'll try and take some breaks and review and check them out and throw them into discussion. There's also a chat feature if you're following us on Zoom. I won't be checking that for questions, but please utilize, if you wish, to talk to some of the other people that are joining in on this conversation. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live, my co-pilot on the production side is Christine Girardi. She'll be checking some of the chat and the Facebook Live questions. So we'll try and get to some of those as well if there are any there as well. If there aren't, that's great. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy what we were just talking about and get a bit of an understanding about what goes on in museums, both on a regular basis, but certainly in these last 4 months that things have changed. So anyway, so that's that. Sorry, I've got, pages. Here we go. First flaw. As I mentioned at the top, I've asked two wonderful museum professionals that I respect tremendously here tonight. I just wanted them to have a casual talk. I sort of asked them to come on. We'll have about a 45-minute hour chat that you can join along with, ask your own questions. I told them to grab their favorite beverage and let's discuss what's going on. I don't know if any of them brought anything alcoholic, but certainly they'll just be here to sort of join in. And I've got my mug and my some beverage for me, but of course it's water because I'm still at work. So take a quick break and anyways, start to introduce our first guest. First person I'll introduce is Kathleen Powell, who is the Supervisor of Historical Services and the Acting Supervisor of Cultural Services for the City of St. Catharines. Kathleen is a lifelong resident of the Niagara region. She earned her BA in History at Brock University and a Certificate in Museum Studies with the Ontario Museum Association. And she's also currently working on a master's degree at Brock University. She's doing that in history. She's worked at historic sites and museums all across the Niagara region, including the Parks Commission, the City of Niagara Falls, which she was the curator or the manager here before I was, and the position is with the City of Niagara Falls. So welcome, Kathleen. And our other guest was born and raised in the Niagara region as well. I think all three of us are. Well, I know I was, so that makes all three of us. Sarah Kaufman holds an honors Bachelor of Arts degree, specializing in history and politics, and a master's in public history from the University of Western. Sarah became the managing director of the Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum in 2010 and is responsible for the day-to-day operations, implementing board-directed strategies and policies, as well as the management, research, and exhibition of the museum's collection. She has curated a number of exhibitions, including the few digital on the general history of Niagara-on-the-Lake, the War of 1812, the First World War, and many more. Sarah also enjoys participating in local heritage projects in the community, such as Landscape of Nations, the Voices of Freedom Park, and the various commemorative committees. So welcome, Sarah. And like I said, I want to hopefully make this a casual chat amongst the three of us. We've already sort of chatted and we got into some of it already. So we had to sort of hold back on that. But really, this is just a bit of a casual chat. Like I said, the first time, I hope I do well. I hope I don't overtalk. Both these ladies knew what they're getting in because I do talk quite a bit. And they've been in many meetings where I sort of always try to get the last word, but I don't try, but they still put up with me usually. So hopefully I can just sort of sit back, listen to what they're doing. Hopefully you all enjoy this. And we'll just sort of start in. So I think for the people that are joining us, I'd like to hope that everybody who is joining in knows about the St. Catharines Museum and the Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum. But maybe, Sarah, can you maybe start us off, unmute your mic and sort of let us know a bit about the newly named Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum?
Yes, the newly named Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum. Very excited about that. We've sort of launched it a bit after this COVID, a bit more. But so it's really started with the Niagara Historical Society. We've been around since 1895, of course, and they started collecting soon after that. So our museum has been around for quite a long time. We are located in the tourist area of Niagara-on-the-Lake. In a couple heritage buildings, of course. It's a privately run small museum. So we're not a municipal museum, although we do receive significant funding from the municipality, which has happened in the recent years, and that's really great. We have about 4 staff, and we do an average of about 80 programs a year with, well, last year we did about 101, which is pretty crazy. We have about 600
nuts if
members.
you ask us.
Yeah, we have about 600 members, and I guess, we were in the midst of capital planning too, and we have been in the midst of capital planning, expand and renovate the museum as well. That's a bit of a background.
That's a bit of a background. So, and if anybody's never been there, they have to go see. It's one of the most wonderful little collections you can imagine. Again, I'm a little biased, as Sarah knows. As Kathleen, maybe sort of fill us in on what you've got going on in St. Catharines.
Sure. So historical services for the city of St. Catharines actually includes 3 historic sites, 2 historic sites and the museum. So we have the Morningstar Mill located on DeQ Road, just not too far from Brock University, the Lakeside Park Carousel, and the St. Catharines Museum and Welland Canal Center, which is located right at Lock 3 on the Welland Canal in St. Catharines. And the Morningstar Mill and the Lakeside Park Carousel are closed this year, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, and the museum as well at the moment, but hopefully we'll be back open again. The St. Catharines Museum has been around since 1967, not nearly as long as Sarah's place.
None of us have been around as long as Sarah's place.
It relocated to the museum building where it is now at Lock 3 in 1991. And it's a fairly popular tourist destination because you can see ships right up close in the lock right where we're located. So that's pretty cool. So we get a lot of people coming for that. And then of course we have our collection and we tell the story of the city of St. Catharines through our collection. We have a pretty large collection, about 750,000 objects, including a ginormous collection of photos from the St. Catharines Standard, which is a good chunk of that number. And so it's really great. We have, prior to COVID, we've had about 25 staff members that worked regularly in the building with some summer students as well, depending on the time of year.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen. And again, we want to talk about museums and everything else, but I guess you mentioned how your other 2 sites are closed. Is the viewing platform still open, or is it closed, or are you trying to figure out how to deal with that right now?
The viewing platform's closed at the moment.
Okay.
It's really difficult to physically distance on the platform when, sometimes we would get, obviously right now it's not exactly that way, but we could get hundreds of people on the platform and to have people be able to stand 2 meters away. And then, we were concerned about the cleaning of the the space, if everyone's touching the fencing and stuff. And so kind of we went the same route as the playground situation, where we couldn't really control it. So at the moment it's closed, but when the museum opens back up, the platform will be open up as well. You'll have to access it through the museum, but it'll be open as well.
Great. Sorry, diverging, but
yeah.
And it's, so I guess so that's a bit of background on who you guys are. Two great museums within Niagara. So let's sort of start, roll it back a little bit back to March and how things changed very quickly for all of us in our sector. And I remember that we ourselves were ramping up for March break and quickly changing how we do crafts. Christine was running around and trying to figure out a new craft that we can use disposable things and how to work with a dinosaur show and reduce numbers and what they have, because all of us were not knowing how to deal with this. I guess, do you recall what those first couple of days were like for your museums? Maybe Kathy, sort of the first couple of days and what it was like around the facility.
It was pretty crazy. This was like the week before March break, actually. And I remember, and probably just the end of the week before that, I remember that it seemed like every day it was something different. So it started out like, that, a few people needed to go home and work from home. We couldn't have everybody in the building, but we were still open to the public, and then we were closed to the public. And then everybody had, like, all of a sudden, everybody had to go and work from home. And it was really disorienting. It was difficult to, like, you felt like you were almost swimming in deep water. You could kind of keep up with what was going on, but it felt almost like you were almost to the edge of, oh my God, what are we going to do next? And what's coming next? And then, it calmed down a little, but it was pretty crazy for the first couple of weeks. I had March break off. And so I still took that week off, even though we were closed on March break, which was really unfortunate because we had great programming planned, just like you both did. I think it was a little crazy for the staff member who had to take over for me while I was off. He had to deal with some of the administrative things that related to being closed so quickly with almost with no notice at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Sarah, what was your guys' experience like?
Well, very similar, I would say. We closed down the weekend, I think it was the Saturday before March break ourselves. And I felt like a majority of my time was spent, monitoring social media and news networks, just being like, oh my God, this person, they've closed down this. Okay, now they're closing down, listening to the municipality and what they were talking about. Okay, the ROM has closed and, okay, what did they say?
What are they doing?
Yeah. And then is Niagara Falls closing? Is St. Catharines closing? What are people doing? And then finally, deciding, okay, yeah, we need to close down. And unfortunately, we didn't have children's programs. We don't normally do children's programs in March because we don't have the space for kids while being open, every day. We don't have a programming space. So we were very lucky that way. I think most of my time at that time I was actually going on vacation too, that following week of March break. So I didn't really take vacation. I actually worked through most of it because it was very stressful of like, okay, what's our communication going to be? What are staff doing? What are we, trying to figure out what each staff person sort of job tasks would be, how would they be working, remotely. We're very lucky that we all have our own laptops for the most part. And so, we have our laptop stations. And so everybody could work remotely and work on projects at home. So that was lucky. And just making sure that, we were coming in and monitoring our buildings. And then it's the focus of, okay, what are we doing? And we had one of our staff really take the lead on social media, which is something that we kind of did from time to time, everyone, like I would say we probably posted a couple times a week, and now it's like every day, at least one post so that we can stay connected, right?
Yeah. So let's get into that. Cause again, I think the thing that we all had to do is get into this digital, realm, which we all, like you said, we all dabbled, we did social media. We knew we need to communicate with our audiences. We had to sort of stay in touch on a regular basis. but now it was imperative to sort of get the messaging out and sort of say, this is what we're doing. And we're still around. And even though museums closed, there's still things we are doing. So I guess, maybe sort of go in to describe your approach. And Sarah, you can start us sort of off on that as to, how did you approach this to continue to remain relevant and provide service community? Sort of how did you go at that?
So obviously a lot of it was social media lead. And then, there were a ton of webinars, I feel like all the time going on. As staff were on webinars all the time of COVID this and what sort of online programming can you do? And so, we were trying to brainstorm within the group of how, with our staff of how are we going to do online program. We were 100% programming on site. So, the social media really picked up with quizzes. One of our staff really liked quizzes. And so a lot of our followers love the quizzes, which is hilarious. And then promoting more of, our online collection, promoting our Google Arts and Culture exhibits. So at least, they can see our exhibits online, because what we've started to do is when a temporary exhibit is done, that exhibit then moves online. So, trying to promote those exhibits as much as possible. And then, with that, you sort of realize where your weaknesses are in terms of the digital situation. But anyways, we can go into that after, but we started doing our online lecture series. So March was when we were supposed to start our lecture series. We do, monthly, March to September. And then trying to find people who would be comfortable doing online lectures, which is a struggle because a lot of our members and the people that were doing the talk are older and they're not really comfortable doing stuff at home and doing talks. So trying to line up those talks and then also trying to line up our communication with the membership. I could go on, I'm sorry. I won't go on.
No, go ahead.
No. Trying to get your membership and keep them engaged, because there are membership, and community members who are not on Facebook. So we were thinking about them. And so, we moved to weekly newsletters about what we're doing. And then, actually doing hard copy outreach as well to those members that we knew weren't internet savvy, so that they were still getting, a word search puzzle, a history reminded, blurbs about, certain historical tidbits and such. So, we tried to reach out to those people as well who were left alone, alone at home, essentially.
Great. So, well, Kathy, maybe sort of same question, and then we'll sort of both talk about challenges and successes as well. So maybe sort of just an overview of how you approached it, Kathy.
Yeah, for sure. Like we realized right away that online programming, we needed to take some of the programming that we were doing in person and move it online. We already do quite a bit of online engagement. Our social media is pretty active generally. We're lucky that we have staff who are able to focus a lot on that as well. So we already had a lot of that. So we continued with some of that. And then we also have a regular blog and a regular podcast program that we continued. And we actually ramped up some of that over the course of the last couple of months. We started to repost some of our blog content as a start, and then create new content as well. And then for our podcast, it was the same thing. When we had the opportunity, we would repost something that potentially related, that was a good kind of segue. And then we also recorded, we were doing podcasts about we have 2 different podcasts, and we were posting one each every other week, basically. So they come out like once a month each. But now we're posting our podcast once a week. So it's quite a bit of content. So really a lot of it is reposting some of the content from the past that, we thought people might be interested in listening to if they hadn't done before. So there's that. And then like Sarah, we hadn't been doing online exhibits so much. But we definitely posted our exhibits that are temporary exhibits online. during that time. So it wasn't something we took up right away, but we had an exhibit that was supposed to open the day that we closed. The day we closed, I was actually installing the last of that exhibit. So it's such a drag. It looks so great. I saw it today at work and I'm like, I love this exhibit still. And it'll be there when people come back. But we started posting some of those exhibits. We had used for an exhibit in the past History Pin. And so we posted a couple of our exhibits on History Pin. And then we also posted some of our exhibits on our blog as blog posts with photos and information about the exhibit. So we did find a way to try to cover that side of the content. And then we were really concerned about having content for schools and younger people. And so we did a bunch of Facebook Live activities recorded in the gallery. So the programming staff never really left completely. They still worked in the building all by themselves, recording. I remember the top hat ceremony was supposed to be the week after March break, and I came in and I recorded a virtual Kathleen Powell top hat. So we did some of that on Facebook Live, and we did quite a bit of virtual educational programming, creating lesson plans. You know, there was a little bit of a blip with figuring out what technology was going to be really the best for schools and for teachers. But once we figured out what that looked like and how we could work with teachers to accommodate their needs, that really started to take off closer to the end of the school year. And so we're really happy about that. Let's see, what else did I have on here? Oh, we did a bunch of kind of crazy things like Lego building challenges.
So that had to have been Adrian's idea, right?
Have to.
Adrian loves architecture and historic architecture in the community, and he loves Lego. So why not challenge people to build their own historic architecture and then build, like, he literally spent hours building those Lego buildings. The last one he did is massive. It's still together in the lobby at the museum. And
you're gonna do an exhibit on it.
I was so disappointed. We got rid of all my son's Lego about 3 years ago. So
I can't do it. I still have a lot of Lego here. And then, of course, we started up this virtual museum lecture series about a month after we closed. And we ran lectures every Tuesday night up until just a couple weeks ago. And then we're actually going to do that again starting in the fall in September. We're going to continue with our virtual lecture series. It's been very well received, and it's been really great. It's a lot of work to pull a lecture together in a week, essentially. So, you know, you started out with, I'm sure you did the same, start out with stuff you already know and things you already had pulled together into PowerPoint. And then we got to closer to the end where I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do like a full university essays worth of research to do this PowerPoint next week. Anyway, it was a great program, and I think that the people that participated in that and that were our attendees really enjoyed it. So I was happy about that.
It's great. You could always use the old stuff, right? History doesn't change that much, right?
Exactly.
So it's nice. It wasn't stale dated, and just bring out stuff that you already sort of know and can give new audiences.
It was a great opportunity to repost some things that we knew that was really great content. You know, you create something a couple of years ago and you're like, we put so much effort into that. It's too bad it didn't have a longer life. And it was a great opportunity to be able to bring more visibility to some of that stuff again, which was really great. And I enjoyed this social media content that both of your institutions were putting out throughout the whole time. And I liked your quizzes and
I did okay on those.
Wrong guesses only I didn't do very well in your quiz, actually. I don't know if my name was on it, but the one I did, I was like, I got to go back to school. Apparently, I know nothing about Niagara history.
Some of them were hard. Some of them.
They were hard.
I got perfect on every single one.
Oh, you shame me.
I think we got a bit more background knowledge on that. So
yeah, most of them were Niagara-on-the-Lake related. And it was nice. All of our staff kind of contributed. Shauna did a lot, but a lot of the staff sort of created them. So they tried to vary it up a bit.
When you guys started doing that, the one thing I thought of, and again, I'm letting out the golden, is somebody's going to tap on this, I think. Like, I want to do a Niagara Falls, what historic attraction am I? And do the BuzzFeed quiz.
Oh, that's cool. You should do that.
Yeah, I looked into it. It's not happening anytime soon. We got
Steal that idea.
But anyways, but I just throwing it out there. That's the one idea that hasn't happened. I did about 5 minutes of research and I thought, I'm not going there. But, so again, all of a sudden we're thrust into this technology revolution that's been around for 20 years, but still getting into it. Were there challenges with struggles? Again, again, big staff, small staff here. I guess, Kathy, was there challenges for you guys at the start of it?
The biggest challenge we have is that we always underestimate how much time it takes to do digital work. Mm-hmm. You think you could just throw it together, and you can't really just throw it together if you want to have quality content. Yeah. And videos especially are a lot of technical work, and to make them look professional. And of course, we always want to take on a lot. Museum people are so passionate about the work, especially public programmers, but all museum people are passionate about what they do, and they just want to share everything. And I think it's easy to get burned out. And I think that at the start, especially, it was already challenging mentally for everyone to have to consider what it was like to be working from home. You're in a totally different atmosphere. You're not around people all day long. You don't have your comfortable setup that you might have at work. You might be working in your dining room. And then on top of that, you've just taken on 10 more projects that you weren't planning on doing. And so I think that was for us personally, the biggest challenge. We were super lucky that we already had a lot of the tech equipment that we needed. We had already done a whole bunch of this kind of stuff already. So the learning curve wasn't too bad on it, but the mental part of it, I think, was the most challenging.
Right. Sarah, what about you guys?
Yeah, I would think the learning curve with the technology is something that was a difficulty for us. And even now, I mean, we've kept it very basic and very simple. We haven't done too many pre-recorded, videos that are, really well edited and such. We've done more of what I like to call the guerrilla style videoing, which actually I kind of like. I kind of think it's fun and a bit more perhaps personable. I don't know, but and Shauna has done a bit, and I did a bit, and then we did some for volunteers and stuff. It was kind of fun that way. But I think the other thing is having a dedicated staff person who is comfortable with online programming isn't we don't have that technically under job description in any of the positions that we have. We have a small staff. I know some of the much larger museums, I don't know about you, Kathy, but the larger museums have a specific social media person.
Yeah, we don't have that.
I was like, yeah, I didn't think that, but I think the mom does, those big wigs. That they have those positions of someone that does that, whereas us, we were like, everybody kind of contributes little parts, and Amy was doing some gift shop videos, and so we tried to mix it up a little bit. I think that was probably our biggest challenge. And then we didn't have the technology, perhaps, like we had to become familiar with Zoom and how what program is the best to use for online lectures and such. And I think we're still kind of figuring our way out, and we are still trying to plan for more online programming, adapting some previous programs and trying to put it up online and figuring out how to do that. That's not something that we've focused on previously. So it's a big curve for us.
Right. And I think all of us are sort of in a bit of a wave too, right? Like we had that first initial thrust, and then now we're sort of getting into a groove, and where are we going next? In some ways, we're all sort of figuring out as well. What is our brand, for lack of a better term, or personality with what we're doing. So, and it's great that you guys got volunteers doing a lot of your lectures, which is great too, providing that community input, much like that little museum has always done. So that's great. What is maybe Sarah, you can start, like what do you see as your best, and again, a bit of a loaded question, and how do you determine best, but what is your biggest success in all of this? What have you seen that really feel worked for you guys?
Our biggest success, I think, is social media engagements. Our engagements for posts went up like skyrocketed compared to what they were previously. And I think it really helped with our community awareness. So, you know, the quizzes obviously were, and like those do take a lot of work for,
Yeah.
I didn't create one myself.
Well, I haven't done a BuzzFeed quiz. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but like, you know, I know some of the content might have been taken from work that I've done in the past or an exhibit or something. So I did contribute in some way in the research maybe, but, you know, those were extremely popular with our member or followers and such. And I think the guerrilla videos people really liked. And for some reason, you know, well, not for some reason, I guess are more interactive on social media, just really got our name out there a lot more, which has been great. And so people are like, oh, I've never visited this museum. I look forward to visiting it when you guys open. And I think that was huge. So social media, I think, was our biggest thing. And the online programs were popular initially. They've kind of dwindled off a little bit. I think that has to do with the nice weather too. So.
Sorry. I just got a question and I was getting sidetracked. So maybe Kathy, maybe talk about your successes, and I'll try and reread that and not be not lose track of things. So
I think for us, I would say that the big success was our two things. One was the virtual lecture series. It's been really, to me, it's been really great, and a different audience, and really a great interactive kind of activity. So because we've been doing the live to YouTube has a live chat feature, which is really great. And so the people who are participating can, I know Sarah, you did it on Facebook, right? And I'm not sure how the chat feature works with that. I think there's one on Facebook as well, right? But the live chat version part of the lecture was great. I really loved the ability of the audience to interact. You know, when you go to a lecture, which is always awesome anyway, you learn so much either way. Sometimes you want to ask in the middle of the lecture, you want to ask a question. And so the nice thing about this live chat online is that the questions can come in and other people can answer them. And also we always have a moderator there, and that person could be answering questions while the lecture is going on. And I really loved the interactive two-way kind of part of that. And then I thought our school program that we pulled together, this museum classroom programs, all of the whole package all together, I thought was very successful. I thought that the staff at the museum did an amazing job with that whole thing all pulled together. We're going to definitely continue both of those two programs, even once we're back open and into the foreseeable future, because I think that they went really well. They were manageable and well received. And, you know, you always want two-way communication with people if you possibly can over the internet. If you have engagement, that's kind of the way to do it in my mind. And so those two things I thought were a great success. The other stuff was always fun. I think all of it is great, but those two things I personally really, you know, took to heart.
I guess, and the follow-up, and again, I've loaded you guys with the questions, so you guys know what's coming, but I guess it's always interesting to see from a museum perspective. Like we like to talk about successes, but is there anything that you feel didn't work for you guys, that just didn't click, or you thought was going to do better, or anything sort of on that front, Kathy?
Yeah, I actually thought that more people would participate in the live Facebook activities that we did every I think they were a couple times a week. And I mean, it still has a shelf life because people still see it on your feed and they still look at it. So it did get good engagement eventually, but a number of people sometimes watching live was me and a couple of other people. So I thought that
kind of
would
like
be
tonight. Hey,
I thought it'd be a little better, but at the same time, it is what it is. And even if we engaged only half a dozen people or 10 people or whatever it was on Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, hopefully it captured somebody's imagination for the one or two people. Like, it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Some engagement is better than none. And for someone who's looking for something and you spark some other creativity or further research, that's great too, right? So,
yeah.
Sarah, do you got anything to sort of add into that?
No, we did everything perfectly.
End of story.
No. I think our online lecture series started off really strong. And like I said, it's kind of quieted down a little bit, and I think that's because of probably the nicer weather and stuff.
Yeah,
So
a lot of outside side factors into that.
exactly. So I think some of that will change when we continue it. Perhaps in the fall, we've been thinking about continuing it maybe like once a month instead, because it is a lot of time.
Well, and remind me, in Niagara-on-the-Lake, did you guys run lectures during the summertime, or did you take a hiatus?
No, our lecture
it's year-round?
is March to September.
Okay.
And those are always popular, like, probably
yeah.
about 60 people or so
Yeah.
on site and stuff. But I guess, the challenge that we have in Niagara-on-the-Lake is that our population's a little bit older, and some of them are savvy with social media, mostly Facebook. Like a lot of our audience would be more Facebook than Instagram or the other social media, Twitter,
whatever they are.
Like, what are the other ones? Let me think. So there is a bit of a challenge with that. Is we try and promote things to our members, and they're not always savvy into it on the online stuff. So no, I think the one thing though that we did discover is just sort of our need to become more digital. Maybe looking into new ways to do our social media videos and things like that, but also our website, which hasn't been updated since Clark did it. And then so
every time I go to your page, I'm like, I did that. That was a long time ago.
Like, we gotta get rid of it.
You updated the hours of operation. I looked at it yesterday.
New logo. There's a new logo.
But we discovered that something like our website, you can't buy memberships online, and we wanted to encourage more online membership to get more money in, because being closed, a lot of our revenue was gone, and the town was unsure of what their funding would be for us for the and at the beginning part, when the grants weren't coming through, I mean, the federal grant that came through for heritage culture just the application just started, right?
Yeah.
So we were trying to think of new revenue generating activities, and so discovering we need to find a way to get people to be able to support us that way through memberships, and then being able to support us by purchasing gift shop stuff. So we put our gift shop up online too, which was a really big job, but worth it, because we did get some really great online purchases, which really helped in that month or so where we didn't have any money coming in the door.
No, yeah, and absolutely, with a museum such as yours to try and generate the revenues, and all of us to sort of be relevant, but also the reality of keeping the doors open for the next 100 years, right? Your institution's been around for a long time. You need to keep it going too. So you don't want this to sort of 125. I saw that, your new virtual exhibition. I saw that. So I guess that leads to the last part. Like I'll get off programming in a second, but again, that's what a lot of us have been doing mostly, is the programming side and the digital programming. I guess that leads to the last question is, whenever the normal is, whenever we're, you've opened your doors, Sarah, we'll get into that. We're opening on Tuesday. Where do you see your guys, Sarah, maybe start, how much online programming are you going to be doing? Like, say in a crystal ball, in 6 months, we're back doing lecture series. Are you looking at sort of what this means sort of long-term for your facility?
I think we would continue doing some sort of online programming. I like the idea of doing it. And my thought of trying to make it an easy way is, from now on, maybe our regular lecture series is then put in through Facebook Live, or put up online afterwards, because the big thing about our lectures though is that members, they're for members, and then we get people who buy memberships because they want to come to lectures that they can save some money, right? So I think we will continue that for sure. Kids programming is always a challenge for us, so there is a possibility that we could explore into that aspect, but it's a challenge for us sometimes, but we've got our tiny museum that we were just about to put out in the public.
Let people get their hands on stuff and into small spaces.
Yeah.
Great.
So we had all these things, and I think what we're going to have to do, and now that things are opening up, and doing another session with my staff, which is what I always like to do, is let's do a brainstorming session. Let's get all the ideas out on the table and see what is actually doable, because the reality is, again, we're a small staff, and Kathy said it, doing online programming is really time consuming, and we've got a lot of projects on the go here, as well as maintaining the collection. And so it will be a challenge, but I think we have to look at what we can do within our limits.
Yeah. Kathy, have you had any thoughts as to sort of what's, where these go, what happens in the next step?
For sure, like I mentioned, we'll keep our educational programs online, at least for the foreseeable future, because I don't foresee that we'll be doing any in-person field trips for a while. I don't see schools doing that. But besides that,
a tiny museum to their school.
Well, you could. That's very true. You could. And then some of the programming will continue. Obviously, we'll still be doing our podcasting, and we'll still be doing our virtual lecture series. We have a couple of things that we've already got coming up. Launching this Saturday is a historic adventure series called Where's the Pig? And that's coming out, so you can check that out on Facebook.
It's in the Niagara Lake pig roast that they're doing.
Yeah, next Wednesday, guys, $10.
Hey, we should do that as a cross promotion. So it's inspired by a picture of a pig that escaped. So it's an adventure series to find out about where is the pig. And so the first installment of it, it's 7 weeks, I think, is starting on Saturday. So that's exciting. It's kind of a new thing. It's recorded, but it'll be broadcast on Facebook and promoted on our social media. And then we're planning on doing our guided spirit walks virtually this year.
Okay.
I know you both do guided spirit walks as well. And we know that it will be very difficult to do the program live because ours are always the first 2 weeks in September. That's not very far away. And so we had to decide, when do we call it and when do we decide that we're going to try something different? And so we're kind of excited to see what that's going to look like and how that's going to work. I don't think we have all the details, but it'll be a virtual watch, like a watch party kind of thing, an online watch party of the Guided Spirit Walk program. It should be kind of a similar vibe, except for the spooky being in a cemetery at night part of it. Although I suppose you could sit on your couch and turn the lights out and watch it that way.
Pretend you're in high school, like you're watching a scary movie, right?
Yeah. We're actually doing the same thing. And so actually I should tell the staff person to talk to Adrian, I guess, for to see what you guys are doing and compare, because that's what we're trying to move forward with it that way.
Yeah, because they've already started working on it because it's coming up soon. So yeah, for sure, it would be awesome if we could definitely work together and share knowledge on those things for sure. But otherwise, once we're doing in person, open to the public, and unlike both of you, we probably won't be open to the public until September. But once we are, that's a lot of time that we're going to have to spend working with the public in live face-to-face public. So we do have to decide what we can handle and what we can't handle, and we can't handle everything. And
everything's going to take more time anyways, right? Cleaning takes more time, and just setup and monitoring and managing sort of the traffic flow and all that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so we'll just have to play it by ear and see how it goes. I don't expect we're going to have any in-person events for the second half of 2020 at our facility. That could always change, but I don't foresee it happening. And so whatever we can't do in person that we really feel is really important to our audience, we'll try to offer online at least some part of the experience if we can. So, yeah.
All right, let's shift gears. And I think we've just gotten past the first question. And so I knew it wouldn't take long for us to chat a long time. I knew it wouldn't go short. But none of us are programmers. No offense to one programmer in the room here. But
we've all been there, Clark. We've all
done programming. We all had to do it, absolutely. But some of us get collecting in the history. The collecting. So what I want to talk about the collecting. The objects that all of us sort of love and admire, and why we get into this quite often. It's a rare time for museums. You know, none of us are in this room sort of live for global events to capture capture items for future curators. We've always sort of done an exhibition on something, sort of saying, why didn't they get that object? You know, both of you guys have put out calls for contributions from the community to capture those things for future generations. We've done the same thing. I guess, you know, what are you guys looking for, and what have you guys gotten, you know, and I guess, you know, the last thing is, you know, what gaps are there still? Like, do you feel there's objects out there that, you know, you haven't seen in through your doors or haven't been able to acquire? I guess sort of, you know, maybe talk about how you're approaching the collecting right now. And Kathleen, maybe we want you to start with that.
I was hoping to be able to get a kind of personal look at how people are doing and how they're experiencing the pandemic. I'm sure Sarah can relate to this, but we have a Spanish flu exhibit at the museum that it's still there. When we open, people will be able to check it, which is kind of cool. It ended up being great timing. But anyway, when I was doing that exhibit, there wasn't a lot of personal stories of people from the local community and how they experienced that pandemic in 1918. And I thought that was a huge gap in our collection. Like, there were some personal experiences from other places in Canada, but there wasn't a lot locally to St. Catharines, and not very many pictures. Like, wouldn't it have been great to have a photo of someone standing by the hospital with a mask on in 1918? We had nothing. There were no pictures in the paper at that time because it was still kind of before lots of photos regularly in the newspaper like you'd have today. And so that's the kind of stuff that I thought, you know, if in 100 years someone wants to do an exhibit about the 2020 pandemic, what are they going to be looking for? And so that's kind of what we've tried to encourage people to send in. What we're getting is a lot of photos, which is great, of, you know, places closed, social distancing type markers and signage and stuff like that. And then also some artwork like poetry and photos or pictures that people have drawn and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And then a lot of memes. So a lot of people have used memes to cope. And so I'm part of a supervisor group at work, and we do use a lot of memes back and forth regularly to keep us kind of happy mental health. And so we've been kind of collecting some of those memes as well to try to, you know, to tell the story of like how people are day to day in a totally different world, trying to keep positive through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sarah, what about you guys? How are you tracking the Niagara Lake experience?
We're trying, same thing as, you know, the personal stories or what was the thing. And I hope that doesn't happen again with, you know, 2020, but I suspect some people are just not wanting to think about their personal stories, and some of the stories might come afterwards when this is kind of all done, when people are reflecting and they feel like they have more time or they're comfortable, because right now they're living it and they might not want to contribute, you know, too much. But you know, we have photographs, we have, you know, people handing in photographs, but we're taking photographs. I'm maintaining some stuff myself from an institutional perspective. We've sent a letter out to, you know, the Chamber of Commerce and to businesses and to the municipality to sort of put it in their minds that this is a significant event, and to collect and to not throw out that sign once you're done. You know, once you've opened up, don't throw out that sign that you've closed and what it says, you know. So we're thinking about that. We worked on a junior and an intermediate level sort of journal for kids that were handed out to teachers locally, and then also just out on our social media as well, to make it easier for kids or adults, I mean, adults could use them too, to document their feelings and their thoughts and experiences and what they, you know, what sort of was significant to them at that time, which is a really great documentation. So hopefully, you know, we get some feedback from that from, you know, various groups. But again, I suspect a lot of the stuff will come in a bit more afterwards. The other thing we did was the Dear Diary series. And so we have a phone number people could call, and they could, you know, instead of writing, because some people might not have time to write it, or they just want to, you know, get it off their chest in a different way, they can call in, and I'll give the number 289-719 1918, so people can call in and talk, and it records it, and then we get sent the recording of their voice, and they can talk about their experiences that way.
That's great. That's great. And I think it's interesting to talk about sort of how maybe down the road, like do we need reflection? Do we need time to sort of do that? But also I think all of us are on that level that we know once things move on, they move on. So it's really tricky to balance. And I was thinking on my way into work today, like, and again, the people that are impacted tremendously are the healthcare workers and the social care workers and doctors. And they, we've been all of us have been trying to capture the day-to-day stuff, but at some point we got to figure out how to deal with that aspect of it and what they did. So I think that's a challenge for all of us to sort of see what the front lines were really like and be able to capture that as well. So yeah, no, it's interesting. So I guess we're sort of running almost out of time. I sort of thought this would go an hour. It's been great. I think we could go on a long time, and as I knew, we'd just be able to chat. I did want to get into sort of, and both of you alluded, Kathy's not quite open yet, maybe September, but Sarah, you're open. So I guess what have you guys gone at opening? What are you doing? What are your times? What are the challenges? So how have you looked at changing what a visitor experience is at Niagara Lake Museum?
Yeah, it was a process, at least from my perspective. It took a long time to actually work on the reopening plan. And then all of a sudden, museums were allowed to open in Niagara a little bit longer. It seemed almost quick to me, but, trying to look at as many resources as humanly possible before you actually develop, a whole plan. And then simply, we sat down with all the staff and I went through the entire document and tried to make it sort of a living document and, open the communication and ask them to add their points and their feelings or whichever. And then, it was a long process of just trying to figure out movement in the organization, in our museum. As you said, we're a small museum, and, trying to figure out, hand sanitizer stations all throughout and signage everywhere, and cleaning the bathrooms right after you use it. And, I think a lot of it is just trying to make it more comfortable for staff, right? To get used to the new normal, because, our staff were working on site, at least one person initially, at the very beginning, one person was on site. So we first kind of phased in of staff getting comfortable with each other being on site, because again, we are a small staff and small space. Everybody had their workstations, but there's the common spaces. And so getting comfortable that way. And then, we moved to opening it up for members first, as a thank you for those members who did renew throughout the difficult time of being closed, and to thank those who stayed committed and participated and such, sort of a thank you. And then this week is when we opened up to the public. And so, we've got signage outside that talks about our hours. So we did Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, and Sundays. Saturdays and Sundays, of course, we're a tourist town, so that's where we're trying to capture those folks. And Tuesdays and Thursdays during the week, kind of giving some time, like a day in between for the, disinfecting and giving time if the virus was living on something here, that it has a chance to die. So, and we open 10 to 4:30, so it gives the staff a half an hour, if we've got a lot of people coming through, to clean, prepare for the next day, or, for the next few days. So it's worked out okay so far. We've got signage out front that's, wear masks, and it's not, well, actually the town just today passed a bylaw to make masks mandatory. Excellent. Here. Yeah, so I have to go through and change the signage, because the sign before was just, it's strongly recommended, but now I can be like, okay,
adapting on the fly is happening everywhere. Yes.
Right. So, just, and we had a staff meeting today. I said, okay, so, what hasn't worked? Anybody feedback? What's going on? Because I'm still working remotely. I have small children, so I'm still working remotely, and staff are still working remotely. And, so we're getting used to that. We don't have any volunteers on site, nothing like that. No in-person events. There's a few in-person meetings because we have our courtyard out front. So when we have some meetings with board members, we can really space out there in the courtyard, which is really nice. But I think it's worked out well. A majority of the people coming through are wearing masks already. They're very respectful. Staff, once they're in the public space, have to wear masks as well. You know, visitors coming in, they have to sign in so that if something was found, you know, COVID was confirmed by, say, a staff member or someone who's visited, that we can do some contact tracing as well for safety purposes. We actually also are having our Kid Curator Camp in person in August. So yeah, so Shauna is our educational programmer, was working on the plans for that, which again is very intense, of course, for kids coming on site. I think it's a day by day, and you adapt. And I had said that to the staff, we'll adapt and we figure out what works and what doesn't work, and and try and make people feel as safe as possible to come in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Kathy, you guys aren't open yet.
No.
You know, but certainly you're getting staff back on site soon. You've talked about that. So maybe talk about sort of how you guys are, you know, what the mindset is to get open, but also what you're doing on site as well.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have staff on site. I wanted to mention, just as a quick aside, something related to what Sarah just said was about volunteers. We all have a lot of volunteers who work with us, and I think that some of them feel a little unmoored without us as part of their daily lives. And you know, such great kudos for our volunteers who have stuck with us. We have a handful of collections volunteers who've continued to do some cataloging work from home and to do some digital type work that they were able to do, not with physical objects, but parts of the standard collection you can do because you just need to look at the picture, right? And so that was great. And we've had volunteers, a lot of our docents who have you know, continued to stay active just in conversation with us over the course of the time, who have given us really great feedback about how they're going to feel about coming back into our workplace as well, considering that we'll be open to the public by then. I don't foresee any volunteers before public, potentially even longer than that, because you know, it's small spaces that
small
everybody's
space downstairs at your place. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And so yeah, we have a lot of our staff back to work in the workplace next week, and so that's kind of our test of how things are going to go. And then like Sarah said, it's a lot of moving parts, and because we're also on a rec trail we're the only public washroom along the rec trail in that section. There's some concern about, like, how do we deal with people who are just wanting to come in and use the bathroom? And then how do you control that? And then how are we going to control people coming to want to just go to the viewing platform? You used to be able to come through the parking lot and go up to the viewing platform, and now you won't be able to do that. You have to come through the front door of the museum. We have to count how many people are in the facility. You're
going inside. Yeah. It's a mask, it's mandatory masks and all that.
Well, it'll have to be, because otherwise we can't control the numbers coming in and out from 2 entrances and 2 exits. And so it's kind of like, once you're in the compound, you're in the compound. And there's lots of space to be able to get out and out into the outside area and go up to the platform, but trying to figure out traffic patterns and like, just I know once you're open, it must be like you said, Sarah, like let's talk about what worked and what didn't work. But now for me, I know, and probably for you, Clark, it's like an unknown. So do we do timed ticketing or do we not? Do we keep open a certain number of spaces for just people using the bathroom? And then how do we control that? And then how many people are going to be allowed in our gift shop at any one time? And then how do we control that if the people are only coming for the gift shop?
And they don't have a mask, do you not let them in? And what's the laws around that and all that stuff? Right?
Yeah. And then if there's, well, St. Catharines has a mask bylaw now. So
but there's anyways, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, for sure. And then who's going to be that person at the door that's going to have to deal with that? And that's a whole lot of things that we're going to figure out as we go along, and have as best a plan that we can have. To me, the most difficult and kind of thought adventures, I guess, is the smaller spaces. So if a ship comes into the canal, into the lock, and we've allowed you know, 100 people into the building, say, based on our square footage. I don't know how many we'll be allowing, but say, let's say 100 based on our square footage. Are those entire 100 people all going to want to go out to the viewing platform all at the same time? And then there's nobody left in the building, but at the same time, we can't handle, like, we base that based on, you know, 20 on the viewing platform, 20 in the park, and then, you know, the other 80 around the place. So trying to figure out how will we police that is challenging. And I think it's just going to be, we'll see what happens when we'll have a plan, but we'll see how the plan works out in reality. I was saying to the staff today that it's kind of like the fog of war. So as soon as you step off onto the battlefield, it's going to be what it is. And you're going to have to figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, I told my staff, we have a plan, but you know what? It can change as we need to, because you don't know what's going to hit us until it hits us, right?
Exactly. And you don't know how stage 3 is going to affect you either, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Interactive,
and being in tourism towns
out.
and being at the canal, you're going to be busy. You're not, I guess, Sarah, that's the last thing on this note is, Sarah, how busy are you? Are you the same as normal? Is it a trickle? Is it, I'm trying to figure out what people's appetite is, I guess, and what they're looking for.
Yeah, you know, well, we've only technically been open to the public Tuesday and then today. So this weekend might be a better of an indication, because it's a lot more out there that we're open. So we'll see how it goes. But I would say it's more just not a ton yet. You know, normally the summertime.
Is the old town busy right now, or not really?
I think it is, but it's like people are saying, you know, it's crazy downtown. Well, yes, it is, but on a normal year, it's way crazier than this. It's way busier. You know, there's thousands of people that are coming through our town, right? Especially on a weekend. So I think there's a potential we'll get busy. We're also starting our walking tours on June 18th of the town. So you know, we're going to attempt to do that as well and avoid the Queen Street area. And so hopefully our numbers will come up with that, because there are tourists. There are, you know, some of the hotels are open, and so you know, as much as you want to say, you know, I don't know, the tourists are people get a lot of nervous, you know, about them. There's a lot of community discussion about tourists in town, right? But they are very important to our community economically. So what can you do, sort of thing. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Wrapping it up a little bit, I wanted to sort of give you both an opportunity. Again, both of your institutions, you know, what I do know of them. Again, Kathy, I know in St. Catharines, you're talking about revamping all the galleries. You know, Niagara-on-the-Lake's talking expansion. They have a new tiny museum. I guess, is there anything like what future, you know, beyond the COVID, you know, what are your institutions doing? Maybe just sort of let people know sort of what big plans you have in place, and maybe anything else that we didn't cover that you want people to know about. So maybe Sarah, start us off in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Yeah, well, first thing people should know is we're open, and you come and see us. And I said, you know, we have our walking tours that we're doing on the weekends. We were supposed to launch an exhibit called All Along the Waterfront and really talk about our relationship with the Niagara River and the environment and such, which I was really looking forward to, because I've been wanting to do this exhibit for several years. But we postponed it because I see it more of a summer exhibit. So I wanted to get its full due. So we're putting it off until next year. And so we've kept our current exhibit called A Piece of Her Mind, which is women's history through quilting and such, up now until the fall. And then the fall, we've decided to do an exhibit on the women in Niagara-on-the-Lake, which a former curator did do. This one is
going to be so much better, I'm sure.
So much better, because it's curated by women. No, but I was
gonna say an old white guy, but a young white guy did it. It wasn't an old white guy at the time.
We're doing a publication on the women of Niagara-on-the-Lake. The title is not out yet, but so they'll link together, and so we'll be launching this publication. And so there's several women up until most recent, with, you know, Blanche Quinn and Donna Scott, who's a former board member, major with Flair magazine and such, being included. So those are sort of on the horizon. And then, you know, our tiny museum program is what we're going to be working on. So we got the building is built, and we have our truck, and we're ready to go. But now we're, you know, looking at educational programming in the schools, which I think is still possible with our tiny museum, because it really is one of those things where you go in and you go out, you don't really congregate too much on the site. So we're very excited to work on programming for that, to have it out in the public or at schools too. And then our expansion, which, you know, the fundraising was supposed to launch like now. So that got delayed, of course, because fundraising, a lot of it is face-to-face and interacting with people that way. So, you know, but we do have a couple grants in, and hopefully that funding comes through and will help us kickstart it. But, you know, that expansion is something that we really need in terms of accessibility and having our programming space and more collection space and exhibit space and proper offices for staff and such. So that's, you know, our big project on the horizon. And, you know, we'll see how COVID affects everything, right?
Yeah.
It's all an unknown right now.
Yeah.
But we're
Big
determined.
challenge. Big challenge. Kathy, what about you guys? What's St. Catharines got coming down the pipe?
So, you know, we launched our interpretive plan at the beginning of the year, and part of that included, the major part that, you know, people will notice right away is big changes to our lobby. Plan to move our front desk area to kind of like a center hub, and the new front desk was actually installed a week after we closed.
Good time to get it done. Nobody's around.
So it's super exciting because it looks amazing. I can't wait to have people see what how it works, and I know it seems like not a big deal, but it's a big deal to me, I guess. And so that's really exciting. And then, like I mentioned, we actually installed a new exhibit that was, it really commemorates the end of the Second World War, which the anniversary was basically right at the start of the COVID close down. But that exhibit is still there, and it'll be ready and open when we open back up again. And it's a photo retrospective exhibit. It's called Coming Home, of local soldiers with one exhibit case of things. And then our lobby exhibit is going to be kind of launched when we open as well. And it's going to be a sneak peek at our next big exhibit, which is going to be called Milestones. So those two cases will have a little sneak peek at that, which won't open fully until December. The Spanish flu exhibit continues on until November, and the Victorian Tweets exhibit also continues on until then. They both actually close on the same day in November, and they're both available online now, but you can be able to see them in real life. I think it will give people a whole eye to look at the Spanish flu exhibit. So that's kind of cool. But otherwise, the really big change is the lobby and the way the lobby will function for us, and just a few things that are, you know, moving forward our interpretive plan over the next several years. As you say, most of our major gallery space will be all redone. But it's going to take time. And again, probably finances will be affected by the COVID situation because we're funded mostly by the municipality, and municipalities have been challenged significantly by the loss of revenues during the COVID shutdown in general, not surprisingly. And so, you know, we'll have to see how that rolls out. But I think, you know, we'll be able to do stuff, and we'll move it along as best we can. And we're really excited to be able to tell new, better,
fresh
more
look,
exciting, a fresh look. Always a fresh look is nice, you know. Even a new coat of paint is a great fresh look, you know.
For sure.
And to try to tell more diverse stories as well about our community, and to make sure that we're looking at the story of our community from different lenses. The idea of, you know, it shouldn't be a shock to do an exhibit about women's history anywhere. It's 50% of the population.
Exactly, right?
But
when that hasn't been happening, where are we with everything else, right? Yeah.
So I mean, it's great, and to be able to, you know, use, you know, the lens of women and people of color and Indigenous stories and immigrant stories and all of those things, and use those to try and tell the stories that we're already telling about our community. And that's kind of the future of where we're going with our galleries as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, both of you. I really appreciate you doing this and taking the time to sort of share with us sort of what you're doing. It was just like I said, it was good to get together and have a chat and find out where you
thanks
guys
for
are
having
at.
us.
So hopefully anybody at home enjoyed it. I will say, for those of you following along on Facebook Live, I didn't hit the last button before it went live, so it went a little bit late. I will post this on our YouTube channel and repost this with this stream, so you can sort of catch the front end of it if you're really engaged with what we said at the back end. The first end was way better. So, so thanks a lot. We had one question from Amanda. Hi, Amanda. I think we answered your question in there. I didn't throw it in directly, but I think we answered your question along the way. So I really appreciate that, and everybody following at home. And I'll just sort of say, you know, thanks for following along on our Not at the Museum Thursday night event. Sort of sign up for our e-newsletter for what's coming up next. Follow us on and these two great museums on our social media feeds to see what's going on, to learn more about the community, what we do, and really to understand where we live in this, you know, if you're in the Niagara region, the Great Niagara region. So hope you stick with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night, everyone. Take care.